Hey everyone, welcome to a new solo challenge of Shining Pearl. This week was one of the hardest solo challenges that has graced our presence thus far. We bring along the dingling Pokemon Chingling to take down Cynthia, the champion of Sinnoh. Comment below what your thoughts on this challenge will be before we get started. Chingling is a very interesting Pokemon that actually originated here in Sinnoh. It's the baby form of Chimecho, much like how Togepi is the baby form of Togetic. In order to breed the Pokemon, we need the full instance attached, otherwise we will only get Chimecho. Alright, let's go ahead and get right to those base stats. At first, I had thought Chingling was worse than Togepi, and in some ways it actually is. Our defenses are not terrible, but they're not as great either. Special attack is the way to go here, and I'm always down for that. Speed could be an issue being on the lower side, but nothing a Quick Claw couldn't handle. Based on these stats, and depending upon the nature we get, it could be a rough time all around. Have you heard of level up moves? Well, too bad. We have the absolute worst attack to start off with. Rap. Chingling is going to spit those sick rhymes until level 10. Also, Confusion is the best we are going to get until Candice. I'll explain why. For this challenge, to make it more balanced, and apparently even harder than I needed it to be, buying TMs from Veilstone is forbidden and strictly off limits. We have to find the TM in the wild or be given it by an NPC in order to actually use it. Well, since we're here on the topic about TMs, let's go ahead and see what those TMs are all about. The four biggest contenders here are Calm Mind, Dazzling Gleam, Shadow Ball, and Psychic. Calm Mind is available as soon as we get access to the Grand Underground, so right there, right before Gardenia. Shadow Ball is right before Celestic Town, which is great for Fantina. Psychic and Dazzling Gleam are not accessible until after we beat Candice. One because you need Rock Climb to get to, and the other is in the Galactic Hideout in Veilstone. There'll be other TMs that we will use throughout the run, but those are the main ones we're looking out for. With all of that out of the way, cheer on Chingling by hitting that like and subscribe button. Let's get this started right away. We have Melody, who has the worst nature we could get. Careful Nature reduced special attack, but it increases special defense. I don't think I need to tell you what this means or what could happen. The early game is hell and a half. Our only attack is Rap, and that deals very little damage. Remember, our first good attack is not until level 10, and I decided to take on the first rival fight at level 9. You have to love being only able to attack with one of the weakest attacks in the game. We do have the Quick Claw as well, since this is available right out of the gate. But this time around, the rival is named Eli. Starly actually lets us have an easy time, somehow. It decided to growl on most turns, which let the Rap overtake it after a while. It does get Melody down to about 12 HP before being knocked out. For this challenge, I decided to let the rival have Chimchar. It was hard to decide which one, and it's been quite a while since we've used this one. I thought the Chimchar was going to let us have an easy time with it, but it decided after being knocked more than halfway down to just go all ape on us and knock out Melody. We then grind to level 10, and let me tell you, the second attempt was a breeze. Starly takes 2 confusions to go down, but not before getting a little hit in. Chimchar takes 3 hits to get down. This is definitely what I should have done in the first place instead of just trying to brute force it. Going right into Roric, I was feeling a little unsure about how this would go. Typically, they don't have the best of special defenses, but even then, we could get screwed over by Onix or Cranidos. This time around, however, was not the case. Geodude is a 2-shot with Confusion. It does get a hit in with Rollout, but it's nothing I was worried about. Onyx is up next, and it's a 2-shot with confusion as well. Crazy enough, it misses both of the rock throws, and I am perfectly fine with that. Cranidos pops out last, and it just does what it does best. All it cares about is lowering our defenses with Leer. It just takes 2 turns, and the small rock dino goes down without a fight. Mars was the start of something that I absolutely hated so much in this challenge. Her strategy this time, and in most of her fights, involves a round U-turn, which is super effective against us. You'll be hearing me say U-turn a lot during this video. This strategy is powerful since our defense is just not good at all. Pure Ugly comes in and just wipes the floor with us on the first attempt. This was a 3-attempt ordeal, and after the second attempt, I went and grinded for what seemed like forever. It took 7 levels in total, but level 24 was the bare minimum in order to take down Mars. This only because we got lucky with the Quick Claw activation for the 3rd and final hit to take down Pure Ugly. Anytime I get through Gardenia with only 1 attempt, I feel like it's a good day. At this point, we have Calm Mind from the underground, and we're going to use it right away, not once, but twice with Cherubi. I mean, it did sort of let us set it up, so why not, right? After that, Turtwig is up next and goes down in 1 hit as well. Now it's time for the Roserade. Quick Claw activates and just lets us one-shot that Roserade with confusion again. Now we have Jupiter. This little fight took me a couple of attempts to get through. I know that Skuntank is very defensive on the special side, so I decide that a double dose of Calm Mind is a definite here. Unfortunately, Zubat got the poison with Poison Fang, which works like Toxic does. Skuntank looks to need about 4 hits from Shockwave in order to take down. In case you didn't know, Shockwave is available very early in the Grand Underground. With the additional damage that Skuntank adds with Snarl and the poison wheedling us down, it was only a matter of time before Melody was knocked out. The second attempt was so much smoother. Zubat misses the first Supersonic and gets Melody on the second one. That's really all we needed to avoid the Poison Fang. Zubat will still fall in 1 attack. Skuntank this time starts out with Poison Gas, which is way better than Toxic. Also, it looks to be a 3-shot with Shockwave instead of 4 this time around. Snarl still does a little damage, but it's not near enough to make us worry. And eventually the big ol' skunk falls to the ground. I'm sorry about how this rival fight went down. Starly used double team each turn it was alive. I just decided to counter that with a double dose of Calm Mind and then smack it with Shockwave. Shockwave for the player never misses, even through evasion. Weasel is faster and gets a tiny bit of damage in before being shockwaved. Roselia didn't stand a chance and fell to confusion. Finally, Monferno gains the fighting type after it's evolved, and confusion hits for super effective damage to one-shot the medium-sized monkey. And here is where trouble begins. Remember earlier, I had said no TM buying from Veilstone City. This makes the fight with Maylene harder than ever before. Confusion is the basic psychic attack and should be upgraded by now. Of course, where's the fun in that? On the first turn, Meditite uses Light Screen to reduce special attack damage, and we set up our first of 2 Calm Minds. Next turn, we are hit with Drain Punch for decent damage, and the third turn, we go ahead and knock out the Meditite. Machoke will never get a chance here as it falls in 1 confusion. Lucario, on the other hand, needs a lot of confusions apparently. Unfortunately, we get knocked out in 2 turns from Lucario. This went on for 4 other attempts before deciding to finally head into the Ground Underground and grind. Melody gets to level 39 before taking on Maylene one final time. This time we do things a little differently. While Meditite is doing what it does best, Light Screen followed by Flash, we set up 5 Calm Minds. I do this on purpose to draw out the turns of Light Screen to drop on Lucario, or at least within a turn. Then it's a one-shot pain train to Lucario. More than half of Lucario's health is dealt from a single confusion, but he decides to screech. We actually fire back with a shockwave to finish off the gym fight. Wake actually did us even dirtier than Maylene did. The first 3 attempts never made it past Gyarados. Crunch is extremely powerful, especially against a psychic type that has crap defense. After that, it's back to the underground for another grind fest. There will be lots more grind fests later on in this challenge. With the additional 3 levels, the shockwave knocks out Gyarados in one attack. Quagsire is knocked out with a grass knot. Sorry, big guy. Finally, Floatzel does get a bite in, but no flinch means the shockwave will knock it out. The third rival fight was unfortunately a breeze. We one-shot every single one of his Pokemon and didn't take any damage in the process. On the way to Celestic Town is the fan favorite Shadow Ball TM, and that gets promptly put on in place of Grass Knot. Fantina is the 5th gym leader of the region, and it's another 2-attempt fight. The first attempt did not go the way we wanted. Drifloon did decent damage with Hex, and the next turn missed the Will-O-Wisp. We take a turn to set up a Calm Mind before taking it down with Shadow Ball. Gengar does good damage with Shadow Claw, forcing the usage of our berry, but we swiftly knock it out with Shadow Ball. Miss Magius is where it all falls apart. It uses Phantom Force, meaning a disappearing act for a single turn, and then striking with a super effective ghost type attack. You can say this is where we fell. The second attempt was extremely different from the first. Drifloon uses Strength Sap instead for a useless effect on Melody, then missed a Hex. We do the same 2 turns with Calm Mind, followed by Shadow Ball to knock it out. Gengar misses the Confuse Ray, and Melody knocks it out with 1 Shadow Ball. Miss Magius actually used Confuse Ray to confuse us, but we break through the confusion to hit with Shadow Ball to almost knock it out. Fantina uses a Hyper Potion, and then the next turn, we knock out the Miss Magius for a 5th gym badge. Gotta love those damage ranges. Hello once again, Eli. It's the next to last rival fight, and it was not nice to us at all this time. We needed 3 additional attempts and another grind after the second attempt in order to take him down. The issue comes in when Monferno pops in. In both attempts, we just cannot get the knockout with 1 confusion, and it takes 2 turns. Monferno has Shadow Claw, and in 2 turns, will take us down to roughly 29 HP. Our berry comes up, and so does Buizel. He'll Aqua Jet and bring us down into the red before getting knocked out. Heracross comes in and is faster with Thief for Melody's knockout. It's only a couple of levels, and it's all we needed to get Monferno to go down in 1 hit with Confusion. Buizel doesn't use Aqua Jet this time, and actually gets knocked out pretty fast. Heracross is actually slower now, but only did Leer before getting knocked out with a double dose of Confusion. Roselia is a one-shot as always, and we finally get to move on to the 6th gym leader. Byron was not too many attempts, but we did have the additional attempt unfortunately. The first 3 turns are pretty standard. Start off with Trick Room while we set up a Calm Mind. Then Sandstorm while we set up a Calm Mind. And finally, Confuse Ray, where we hit ourselves a Confusion. You know, pretty standard stuff around here. Bronzor misses the Flash Cannon next turn, and we break through the Confusion chance for the knockout. Steelix was different. Thunderfang on the first turn, since Melody is completely immune to ground attacks. Then we hit ourselves a Confusion again. The next turn, the Trick Room ends, and we hit first to knock Steelix down to 1 due to Sturdy. But Steelix knocks us down to 1 by holding on to Friendship. You know how Byron does things. Restore stall until finally Steelix is knocked out. Bastiodon is last, and no matter what, it's a 2-shot due to Sturdy. Unfortunately, it hits with Stone Edge and knocks out Melody. The second attempt was so different than the first, we make it to Bastiodon with significantly more HP than before. It's a 3-shot now due to only using one Calm Mind earlier in the fight, but Stone Edge doesn't actually deal that much damage. And now we have our 6th gym badge. This is normally where I talk about Patreon and how you can help out the solo challenges by hitting the card in the top right corner. Well, I guess I sort of did anyways, didn't I? Saturn is not the issue here, as they are easy to take down with our moveset currently. Yes, even with Confusion as our attacking move. Psychic is so close, I can practically feel it. Mars, on the other hand, for the first time ever, handed our butts to us for 5 attempts. Remember earlier in the video when I spoke about the U-turn strategy? Oh yeah, Mars uses it here like crazy, and it will destroy Melody. Golbat and Pure Ugly has it. Super effective, and a low defense stat does not cope well here. Sadly, this is not the last time we see this strat. Somebody else in this run later on uses it, and takes us down for a massive grind, but for now, we need to go ahead and just grind for this fight. At this point, it's getting harder to get levels in the Grand Underground, but we managed to squeeze out 2 more of them. By the way, have you checked out the join button right below the screen? For a monthly fee, you get access to emotes and sub badges specific to the channel. You get to see them in the comments section at any time a live premiere happens. There'll be more benefits coming at a later date too. I was gonna make a joke about how Mars won't be coming back at a later date, but we all know that there's still at least one more fight with them. Of course now, it's all about taking down their Pokemon and just powerhousing through that U-turn to get the win. Have I ever mentioned that I hate the U-turn and Volt Switches strategies? Anyways, Candice is just as icy as ever. She gave us a double attempt ordeal. The first turn is the normal Calm Mind setup for Melody. Snover manages to miss its Avalanche, which is extremely nice since that would have done a lot of damage. The next turn we do not knock it out with Shadow Ball, and it decides to set up Mist. We take this chance to go ahead and set up another Calm Mind, while Candice switches out for Sneasel. It's better to go with Shockwave at this point, but it's not a one-shot either, and we get dealt some major damage back. It takes another 2 turns since Candice heals before letting it get knocked out. Medicham is next, and faster than Melody. Rock Slide does major damage as well, but doesn't flinch to let us knock out the Medicham with Shadow Ball. Snover returns to finally get knocked out, and due to the hail, Melody lands at 2 HP. Unfortunately, Abomasnow soaks up the Shadow Ball, and hits us with a 100% accurate Blizzard due to the hail for a knockout. The second attempt, we get to Medicham, and this time, Melody is faster. I believe it's actually a speed tie between the two. That extra damage saved us as Abomasnow comes out and still soaks up a Shadow Ball. This time, however, its special defense drops, and it will use Aurora Veil to basically nullify that drop. One more Shadow Ball knocks out the Abomasnow for good this time. Cyrus is up next, and it was a joke of a battle. None of his Pokemon got the chance to hit Melody before they were knocked out in one hit. Before we faced him, however, we did pick up the TM for Psychic from Route 211 since we need Rock Climb for it. And while running through the Galactic hideout, the TM for Dazzling Gleam is also picked up and immediately put on. Mainly the reason we had such an easy time was just due to these TMs. Saturn was easier than the previous encounter with them. Kadabra is slower and goes down to a Shadow Ball. Toxicroak is also slower somehow and goes down to a Psychic. Bronzor, however, needed a double Shadow Ball to take down, but the payback dealt to Melody was just such a tiny little hit. Spear Pillar awaits us now, and the double grunt fight as well. At first, it actually seemed like Starly was going to make it through this time, as it got up to level 20. But a little hit from the Stunky puts down the bird. They all can't be legends like Weasel, I suppose. Well, maybe next week. The grunts actually got Melody down to exactly half of her HP before we finally won the fight. Not very often do they get our member down that low. These two are just not that fun to deal with each time. Especially when you have a weaker Pokemon with you. For time restraints, I'm going to show you just the winning fight here. But it was 3 different attempts to get through Mars and Jupiter. After the second attempt was another grind fest to level 67 in order to finally take these two down. Even then, we barely squeezed through. Bronzors did not do what they normally do, and they actually went straight for the payback for super effective damage. I take a turn for Calm Mind to knock at least one of them down. Of course, Munchlax will knock the other one down at the same time. Then we have Double Trouble. Skuntank and Pure Ugly together at the same time is not fun. By this time, Melody is already over half health, and it's not looking very good. With Dazzling Gleam hitting both at the same time, it's a 3-shot on both to take them down. They get Melody down to 1 HP, but we will hold out for the win against the Skuntank and Pure Ugly. The Golbats also go down 1 attack each. I'm not sure if I should feel lucky or blessed with Cyrus. It was only 1 attempt. Honchkrow is actually slower than Melody. The first Dazzling Gleam isn't a knockout, and Cyrus full restores right after to let us Calm Mind. Now it's a 1-shot to Dazzling Gleam. Gyarados was a 2-shot with Psychic, but deals major damage back to us before getting knocked out. Crobat pops Tailwind before being knocked out with Psychic. Weavile does very little damage and gets knocked out with Dazzling Gleam. There's nothing better we could have asked for here, actually. Palkia was super easy this time around. It looked to be normally a 3-shot with the Gleam, but Melody actually crits on the second to go ahead and take it completely out. If you've been around for a while now, you know my gripes about the fight with Volkner. Getting smacked with Volt Switch over and over again is just not my idea of a fun time. It was only a single attempt, but it was so annoying. Raichu Volt Switch is out for Ambipom while we set up a Calm Mind. Ambipom fake outs to flinch Melody. She then avoids the double hit and knocks out the Ambipom with Psychic. Another Volt Switch forces the berry usage, and Octillery is knocked out instead with a Psychic. A third Volt Switch will bring in Luxray to be knocked out with Psychic. Raichu then uses Charge Beam on the last turn, which did like 20 damage, and then will fall to a Psychic. It wasn't a terrible fight, but I've definitely have seen better ones. This is where the pinnacle of U-turn shenanigans come into play. The final rival fight took 13 attempts and grinding from level 76 to 95 in order to actually take him down. Sadly, this isn't the final grind either, but more on that in a minute. Staraptor is the U-turn user for massive damage. It forces us not to be able to set up because Floatzel will just come in and Aqua Jet for just as much damage and put us basically 1 hit away from a knockout. We can knock out Floatzel, but then Snorlax is just a sponge and will then knock out Melody with a crunch. This was a typical fight until level 95. No Calm Minds as we just go straight for the knockouts. We needed those levels to get that extra bit of special attack. Our stat at this point is 143. With a stat like that, it's a wonder we made it this far to begin with. Irregardless, the winning run was Staraptor starting off with Pluck to steal my Chesto Berry. Of course, we had that just in case of Yawn from Snorlax. Right after, it's the U-turn into Floatzel and a knockout. Snorlax needs 3 Psychics to knock out. It does use Yawn on first turn, then crunch the next 2 and leaves us at 1 HP due to Friendship. This was one of those times I was actually extremely happy to have this happen. Staraptor comes back in and U-turns, but can't budge Melody from 1 HP to bring out Infernape for us to knock out. Now it comes back out to Pluck and miss before getting knocked out itself. Heracross and Roserade are both slower and only need one Psychic to get down. That was a hell of a roadblock, but now for another one. Aaron is a Bug-type user who just wanted to make my life miserable, even at level 95. It took a total of 13 attempts to get by, and after the 8th one was the final grind, from level 95 to level 98. This is the closest to 100 I've been in a solo run of Brilliant Diamond or Shining Pearl. The first attempt I'm showing was a really good run in my opinion. Calm Mind before a light screen is put into place. A Psychic will still put the Dustox out of its misery. Sometimes Beautifly will get knocked out in one hit, other times it takes two. Vespiquen was way more tankier than I remember it being. We did about half health before its berry popped. Then it raised its defenses with Defense Order. An attack order will deal massive damage as well. Heracross hits with Rock Slide and will fall to a Psychic. Then lastly, we have Drapion. Drapion is faster and will knock out Melody with a Night Slash. The next clip is Drapion knocking out Melody from almost full HP. It just goes to show that Drapion is really strong in the attacking department. Of course, at the same time, our defense is really not good at all. The winning attempt is basically like the losing one I showed, except that Drapion missed its Night Slash and gets one shot by our attack. Bertha was interesting. It only took one attempt to get past, and I was very happy with how this came out. We set up a single Calm Mind on Quagsire, who hits us with a Surf. Then one by one, her Pokemon fall until we get to Golem. Golem has Sturdy as always, and gets a Stone Edge off for some pretty decent damage. Bertha does the potion spamming thing, and we just knock it out after all of that is over with. Hippowdon is also a one-shot. I was thinking it would have been a two-shot with how it was in Victory Road, but all those extra 25 levels paid off a little bit. Flint ticked me off on the first attempt. Rapidash is still faster, even being 40 levels higher than it. It will also hit Melody with Iron Tail. We follow up with Psychic to knock it out. Then we have Steelix. For the first time in my solo runs, he actually got a knockout on one of my Pokemon. Melody's Shadow Ball only does about half health to it, and we get blasted with a powerful, super effective Crunch. Was not the way I was expecting to go out on this fight. Attempt 2 went quite differently. Rapidash puts Melody asleep for a turn and then misses its attack on the next turn. We get a Calm Mind up before taking down the Fire Horse. Steelix falls to a critical Shadow Ball. Remember, this time it does not have Sturdy. Lopunny is next, and am I ever glad it did not use Mirror Coat. Instead, it uses Fire Punch for a little bit of damage. Flint will use a full restore, and the next turn, we get hit with another Fire Punch for a little bit of damage before knocking out the Bunny Rabbit. Driploom attempted to minimize, but was hit immediately for a knockout with Shadow Ball. Infernape puts Melody in the red with his Fire Punch, but we hit back with Psychic to knock off its Focus Sash. Of course, Flint full restores it, and it falls that same turn. Lucian, after all the hell you have given me these past few solo runs, this victory felt so good. See, here's the thing. Calm Mind increases special attack and special defense. Mr. Mime is a special attack user, and it just felt great to set up 6 Calm Minds while being tickled with its dazzling gleam. The most it would actually ever do to me was 25 HP, and we were pretty much gaining that back with leftovers. It still does take 2 Shadow Balls to knock out the Mime, since its special defense is just so high. Girafarig is next and falls to our Dazzling Gleam. Medicham didn't get a chance and falls to a Shadow Ball. Alakazam is still faster, but instead uses Nasty Plot instead of trying to attack. Finally, we have Bronzong, who doesn't even stand a chance either to a Shadow Ball. How did we even manage to get here? Your guess is as good as mine. Our nature is the worst one we could have gotten, and yet we stand face to face with Cynthia, the champion. I'm personally extremely happy with how this battle went down. Our item of choice here is leftovers, and it actually saved our butts a couple of times here. To start, 1 Calm Mind before Spirit Tomb hits us with Shadow Ball. Sadly, it does lower our special defense, but that just gave us a net 0 from our boost. Then it decided to Sucker Punch us for major damage down to 57 HP. From here, we'll knock it out with the Dazzling Gleam. Roserade is next, and yet another attack I didn't actually know it could learn. It used Shadow Ball, but it brought us down to 11 HP before being knocked out from a Psychic. Gastrodon is a one-shot with Psychic, which lets us gain more HP back from leftovers. Melodic almost goes down to 1 Psychic, but gets a shot of Scald Off to bring us back down to 12 HP. Cynthia gave us a couple of turns with the full restore to let us heal with leftovers, and to knock out the Melodic as well. Lucario hits with Flash Cannon, and brings Melody down to 11 HP as well, before being knocked out from a Psychic. Finally, we have Garchomp. Dragon Claw hits to bring Melody to 1 due to friendship, and Garchomp falls from a Dazzling Gleam. This was by far my favorite champion run I've ever done. So many emotions, and all of it leading up to friendship being the true decider. Even with a crappy Pokemon like Chingling, we actually managed to pull off a win in the solo challenges. It only took 2 actual attempts of the champion in order to pull this off. 1 level off of 100 and 15 hours in-game, plus I'd estimate about another 3 from resets. Next week is the start of the Halloween-themed solo challenges, starting off with a gym like no other. See you then.